All right, it looks like things are rolling here. We'll wait just a few minutes for people to roll in, and then we'll get the official show started. I guess I should turn my recorder on too. Oh, look at that. It's not coming through on my microphone. Okay, there it is. That's good. All righty. We got 4 people tuned in so far. What a record.
Wow, that's all my friends.
It's like half of our listenership. It's amazing. Claire is here. Hiya, Claire. All right. People are streaming in. So I suppose. Oh, you know what? I did this last time too. I forgot to get our intro music queued up.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad it's you and not me.
Yeah. It's always me, Burt.
Have you got my old microphone cable, by the way?
I'll check under the sofa. That's the last place you left it, right?
Yeah. I'm just going to turn off the light behind me.
Okay. It's nothing like being prepared for you fine folks at home. You can tell how important you are to us. Well, we've been doing a lot of prep for this show anyway, so this is not included. The administration part is not included in our preparation.
No.
Okay. One more thing.
Constantine is here from Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta.
Fantastic.
Oh, and Sue Dollinger. Hi, Sue. And Monica. Oh, you happy people who have nothing better to do.
Shame on you. All right.
Turn this off, please, and start balancing your checkbook. Come on. It's almost the end of the year.
I think we are ready to go.
Hey, John. Jacqueline.
Okay, I've got our music queued up. I've got our intro read queued up. I think we are ready to go. So here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2. Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere.
I'm going to do that. Aren't I doing that part?
Hold tight. You'll know exactly what you're doing as soon as I get mine in. Ready?
Yeah.
See, folks, this is part of the outtake show. That'll make it. Actually, I just hit record. So that was a flop. I missed that. So, all right, here we go. This is the semi-polished version of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. The parts that you don't usually get to see or hear when you're listening in. So, here we go. In 5, 4, 3. Support for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere comes from MX Publishing, with the largest catalog of new Sherlock Holmes books in the world. New novels, biographies, graphic novels, and short story collections about Sherlock Holmes. Find them at mxpublishing.com.
And by the Wessex Press, the premier publisher of books about Sherlock Holmes and his world. Find them online at wessexpress.com.
I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, episode 207. A Sherlockian show and tell.
I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became a chronicler.
In a world where it's always 1895, comes I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, a podcast for devotees of Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first unofficial consulting detective.
I've heard of you before. You're Holmes the meddler, Holmes the busybody, Holmes the Scotland Yard Jack in office.
The game's afoot as we discuss goings-on in the world of Sherlock Holmes enthusiasts, the Baker Street irregulars, and popular culture related to the great detective.
As we go to press, sensational developments have been reported.
So join your hosts, Scott Monty and Burt Walder, as they talk about what's new in the world of Sherlock Holmes.
You couldn't have come at a better time.
Hi! Yes, that's right. It's time for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast for Sherlock Holmes devotees where it's always 1895. I'm Scott Monty.
And I'm still Burt Walder.
Excellent. And Burt, I hope you are ready to show and or tell today.
Yes, I am, but I want to see Ray Betzner's yoga pants. I think the chat is so much more interesting than anything that we've prepared. Hello, Michael. Hello, Mohammed.
Yes, we have a number of people who are joining us in the live stream right now. They are risking life and limb to take time away from whatever other important things they need to be doing today, December 30th, which is traditionally the day that our show dropped. As you know, if you're a longtime listener of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, we have 2 shows a month on the 15th and the 30th. And today we would usually have a well-wrapped and ready episode to go for you. But instead, we decided to wrap up the year with a live broadcast. We haven't done one of these since, I think back in April or so. Is that about right? Am I remembering that correctly, Burt?
You're talking to the wrong person. I don't remember. That was early in the pandemic. You know, my level of terror was so high that it erased all my memories.
I don't blame you, and I don't know what your excuse was before the pandemic.
I spent most of my life not paying much attention to what was going on. It seemed to work for me.
Well, let's hope it will continue to work. Folks, we have a great show lined up for you today. We said this is going to be a show and tell, and we will try to do as much descriptive telling as we can, because we realize this transcript, this recording is going to be turned into our audio program. And the folks listening along at home or driving their cars won't be able to look and see exactly what it is that we're showing. However, this show is being recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel, our YouTube page, as well as on our Facebook channel. So if you'd like to go back and look at it or look at it for the first time, it will be available there. And we will have links to those particular social media channels in the show notes. I should mention the show notes are also available or will be available at ihose.co/ihose207. That's the 207th episode here. It will take you to ihearofsherlock.com to this particular episode. If you'd like to look into any particular links that we have or look over a transcript or whatnot. So, for those of you not following along at home, Jose Aguilar says, iHose now with 50% less bow ties. Yeah, that's right. Burt decided not to dress up for this episode. As monumental as this was, as important an episode as this was going to be, Burt's simply wearing a fuzzy sweater.
A fuzzy sweater. I think I'm perfectly dressed for December 30th. Although that is a very handsome jacket. You know, I think I may have a similar jacket.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It goes with the bow tie, which this particular bow tie is a fabric that feels like somebody's old couch. It's like upholstery. It's a favorite. Well, before we get into showing you and telling you about some of the things that are our favorites in our Sherlockian collections, wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping here with regard to our support system. You know, a lot of you have elected to support us on Patreon and on PayPal. And the way it's worked typically is PayPal, people have either given a single outright donation or created a monthly recurring donation. And we appreciate all of those. And all of those funds help us to do things like this, you know, to brand our show and to have a live stream like this. We have to pay for this. We have, obviously email and hosting costs and costs for the website, all kinds of things that you wouldn't realize go into the creation of a show. Well, we also have done that on Patreon. And the way we've structured it on Patreon, as I said, we do 2 shows a month, the 15th and the 30th. We were charging per creation. That is, people were paying per episode. And beginning in 2021, after today's final installment, we are going to go for a monthly installment on Patreon. And we do hope that you will continue with us. We're going to change the donation levels up a little bit, but we want to make it affordable for as many people as possible. So we are going to keep the $1 level, and we're going to add a couple in. We're going to have a $2 level, a $3 level, a $5 level, and a $10 level. And again, this is per month, not per creation. So this effectively is going to potentially reduce our intake by about half. And we just reached the threshold where we have enough every episode to put transcripts together. So we're hoping that you will either commit to the same level or higher. If you want to commit to the same level, that's fine. We welcome everyone. But what we would ask is, if you are going from a per creation to a monthly and you're going to stay at the same level, so let's say you're doing $1 per creation, now you're going to do $1 per month. What we would ask simply is that you recruit one person to take your spot, to kind of fill in that 50%, and encourage them to become regular supporters. Okay? Now, Burt, you may be asking, what do I get with these various levels of donation?
What other than that warm feeling that comes from contributing to something that's so fundamental and important to you?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because for $1 a month, you get a hearty thank you from us. And there's going to be more, so stay tuned. At the $2 and $3 level, we'll send you some stickers. My goodness, I think I have my 221B sticker right here. It can go on your laptop, your refrigerator, your car, wherever you'd like to put it. On your roommate's forehead, who knows? But we'll send you a sticker, and you'll get a thank you and more, so stay tuned. For $5 a month, we'll send you a mug, the lovely iHose or Trifles mug of your choice. And then for $10 a month, we'll send you some coasters. All right? Now, everyone that's part of this, whether you're $1 or $10 or whatever level you want to contribute, you will be given access to a new community that we're establishing. I know you're rolling your eyes. Oh, God, what do I need with another community? Well, this is going to be a little different. I know we all do Facebook groups here and there. Kind of tired of Facebook myself. There is a I like this suggestion. Tamar just said, for $10 a month, you get to pick Bert's wardrobe.
Sounds great to me.
Thank
God. I'll pay $10 a month for somebody to pick my wardrobe.
Well, as long as you don't pay $10 a month for people to pick other things. No, I'm not even going to go there. So we're going to create a new community on Discord, which is it's available on the web and on your phone. It's available as directly on the mobile web or as an app, and it basically acts like Slack, but it allows us to get a little more fancy. We'll create a community specifically for I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. We'll create a community for supporters of Trifles. And what we're looking to do there is to get discussion going for people to exchange ideas. We may even have exclusives for you there, right? If we do the outtakes show, if we have additional content, it'll be much easier for us to track both PayPal and Patreon and get everyone in a single community, rather than having to just communicate with our Patreon users on the Patreon platform or our PayPal users via email. So this kind of centralizes everything, makes it a little easier for us, and creates a little bit more of a community between our most dedicated listeners and fans. So I hope, consuming all of that information, I hope that we actually intrigued you a little bit. I hope that we gave you some ideas, and we're looking forward to hearing from you, not only in the comments here today, but throughout the year as well. So we do appreciate your enthusiasm and support. Now, Francine Kitts very clearly states that I need more bow ties. I've been posting a bow tie a day since the beginning of September, and I think I'm now on 120. I'm still going strong. Still going to try. I'm in the midst of the black tie phase right now for New Year's Eve. But my bow tie collection is like my Sherlock Holmes collection. How much do I have? Well, I don't have as much as I need, but I have more than I want. No, I don't have as much as I want, but I have more than I need. That's it. So that's it. Jerry is asking, what's a Discord channel? Well, Jerry, you're about to find out. If you've heard of Slack, it's a lot like Slack. It's basically an online discussion group, and we can create little rooms or little specific streams within Discord. So if we want to talk just about Sherlockian art, we can have an art room. That might sound appealing. If we have things that we want to talk about with regard to show planning and show ideas, we can have one there. If we have, we could probably have one per show if people want to give us feedback on the show, things like that. So that is what we're looking at here. We have so many comments coming through, and we do see all of them as we're chatting away here. I can't post all of them, but we do want to acknowledge that we do see you guys here, and we see your various highs and hellos along the way from people like Joe and Michael and Badre from Egypt. Look at that. We've got another viewer from Egypt. Badre, you are such a loyal listener and fan. We do appreciate that. So, Burt, should we get on with what we're actually here for?
Yeah, but I just have a lot of questions. First of all, I was going to ask you if you would just repeat everything you said since the beginning, since I really wasn't paying attention. But that won't work. Actually, I have a lovely mug somewhere. The fellow who was the cartoon editor at the New Yorker for years would also draw some cartoons, and one is of a husband and a wife. I have it on a mug where the wife says to the husband, "Dear, would you mind repeating what you were saying since we were married? I wasn't paying attention." But my other question is, how come we're not on the Harmony channel? What is this Discord? I've had enough of Discord.
eHarmony?
Oh,
I don't know.
Forget it. Then.
I don't know if we'd find a match, Burt. That's the thing. Oh, thank you. So, hey, look at this. Jennifer says, you both have such nice studies. Can you take photos and give them out as Zoom backgrounds for supporters? That's
a good idea. Yeah. Do I have to include the dust? That's the question.
Well, that makes it authentic, right? I mean, there was, what was it? Sherlock, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, where Robert Stevens as Holmes lit into Mrs. Hudson for dusting his rooms.
Yes.
He said he dated his documents by the amount of dust on them. Yeah. Well, let's go to our favorite stuff. Yeah, and I've been talking way too much here, Burt. So I would like you to lead off with something that you have in your collection, something that means something to you, and tell a little bit about why it's meaningful.
Well, thank you. And with Scott, what you just said there in terms of things that are in our collections, we've talked in the past about collecting. We've had some really interesting conversations over the years on I Hear of Sherlock about collecting, including one with Otto Penzler, where we talked about the nature of collecting. And collecting is a very personal thing. And so one of the things you'll see as we go through these is sort of getting insights into our own characters or lack of character. But what I tried to do is I picked out actually 9 things. And I've been interested in Sherlock Holmes, like all of you for such a long time. So when someone says, what do you have that's really important? For me, I spent some time thinking about that, and it really turned into, the stories that go along with the things and where I was in my own particular time of life and the memories that come back from them. So the first one is really, it's a fairly tiny thing. And so I took photographs, and Scott has a photograph of this to put up. It's a lapel pin, and it's a 221B lapel pin. And when I first went to my first Baker Street Irregulars dinner when I was invited. And I went, as an invited guest probably for, I think, more than 10 years before I was finally invested. I noticed that, there were people at the dinner who had these little lapel pins. And they'd been given out years before, or they were available years before I had my first opportunity to join anybody in this group. And I never learned anything about them at the time other than I had missed them. If there was an opportunity to get one of these things, I had missed it. And to me, it always seemed like, the sort of the quintessential Baker Street Irregulars lapel pin. Well, some years later, I found out that I think the source of this was the Hounds in Chicago, if I remember right. But the story here is that I had moved to Texas and I was living in Houston and working for a division of the Coca-Cola company. And to make a very long story short, I wrote a industrial film for them, really an employee orientation film. And we hired a producer and a director, people with experience to do all this. And they were based in Florida. And so we had orange groves. The business had, among other things, regional coffees and the Minute Maid orange brand. So we did some shooting in Florida. So anyway, I'm in Florida with the producer and the director and some staff. And there was a guy in the production. The producer was named Dan Chandler. And Dan and I got to talking about Sherlock Holmes. And he said, my uncle Lou is a big Sherlock Holmes fan. And I'll give him a call and tell him, that you're interested and that anyway. So Dan Chandler eventually sends me a box of stuff from his uncle Lou, who turned out to be Lou David Feldman.
Oh my gosh. LDF, the House of LDF.
Yeah, LDF. And so that's how I got this particular pin, along with a bunch of other stuff that Lou Feldman didn't want, which I thought was wonderful. This handout and that handout and a bunch of other stuff.
That's fantastic. I love that.
But when I think about this, I think about, that happenstance, and how great it was to be. Dan Chandler, among other things, was a great guy. He also owned a Rolls Royce. He owned a 1960s Rolls Royce, which he had painted white, and he was making money on the side driving it for weddings.
This is like pre-Uber?
Yeah, no, he was making money as a wedding limo driver.
That's awesome.
He's a great guy.
That's awesome. Well, I am so glad that you mentioned Lou David Feldman, because one of the things, and this is complete happenstance, one of the things that I picked out as my favorites happens to come from Lou David Feldman. Let me change the screen orientation here. I don't have a screen share to use. I've actually just got the real thing. And I overdid it. I've got stuff piled up all over my desk because I couldn't decide. There are so many great things that I love in my collection. Now, like you, I'm a member of the Baker Street Irregulars, and I've made it part of my collecting business to go after things that are from or related to the Baker Street Irregulars. And I'm also a longtime member of the Speckled Band of Boston. And a number of Speckled Band members were also BSI. And where there's overlap there, I do like to try to accommodate that. Now, the Speckled Band was founded as an organization in 1940, and it's considered the oldest scion society of the Baker Street Irregulars. Notwithstanding that the Five Orange Pips of Westchester County has been around since 1935, but officially they don't call themselves a scion. They view themselves as a parallel to the BSI. So, Speckled Band, 1940, started out. Edgar Smith was there for the inaugural celebration and was absolutely involved all the way through. And I have found over the course of my collecting career that I have I've been able to locate items that belonged to members of the executive committee of the Speckled Band for many years. And one of those guys is I believe I want to make sure I get this right. This is Jim Keddy Jr. I think this is his, and I'll tell you about the relation to Lou David Feldman in just a moment. But I've come across a number of things that either were Keddy's himself. Keddy and his father were the founders of the Speckled Band, and also members of the BSI, and Philip Mather as well. And there's a number of correspondences between Mather and Keddy that interest me. So this particular item, this is a very large item, this large book, and it comes in a case. It's red, and it says Sir Arthur Conan Doyle across the spine. Okay. And I take it out, and inside there is this lovely copy of the first page of The Study in Scarlet, or the notes from The Study in Scarlet. And it says Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Archives. Now, when you open this up, it's a folded document. It's heavy stock. And there's a huge description in here as to what the contents of this particular book are. On the back, it says 117 copies for the annual dinner held in celebration of the 117th birthday of Mr. Sherlock Holmes at the Players, Friday, January 8th, 1971. Published by
LDF.
Lou David Feldman, BSI. Now, that alone is really interesting to me, right? But then I take this book, and it's got one of these. It's leather, and it's got the kind of the puffy cover there. I open it up, and inside are a couple of letters on this old onion skin paper that people used to type on. And I'm going to take them out because they are addressed. Let's see, I've got I have the original airmail envelopes that they came with as well. These are 3 letters, and they are all addressed to James Keddy Jr., the Speckled Band of Boston, and Wellesley Hills, Massachusetts. And they are from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Estates, and they're dated 1959. And they're signed by none other than Adrian Conan Doyle.
Adenoid.
Dear Mr. Keddy, I was very interested in your letter with its significant date of May 22nd, 1959. I must indeed congratulate you on your splendid collection. Under separate cover, I'm sending you a copy of this exceedingly rare centenary volume, which I want you to accept with my kindest regards. This was Adrian Conan Doyle's keepsake from the BSI dinner from Lou Davis Feldman that he gifted to James Keddy Jr. Adrian Conan Doyle goes on to say, in view of the fact that you have several letters from my father in your fine collection, you may be hearing shortly from Professor Weil Norden of the University of Paris. I may tell you in confidence that for the past 5 years, the professor has been occupied in his researches among my father's enormous archives, of which I am the curator, and in tracing down important correspondence from my father throughout various parts of the world. The object of this profound research on Professor Weil Norden's part is that he's compiling a fully documented 300,000-word volume on every aspect of my father's life. So this is that famous biography by Pierre Weil Norden. That is one of the scores of, or handfuls of biographies about Conan Doyle. But there are 3 letters here. That one was dated June 26th. There's another one on July 3rd and another one on July 25th, back and forth with Keddy. So this is an amazing piece of Sherlockiana, and it's an association copy, as you would say. So it's valuable in its own right, but it's also exciting because of its connection to my friends in the Speckled Band and BSI.
Fabulous. Well, I'm sure that after this broadcast, you're going to be packing that up and sending it off to the archives in Indiana.
Yeah, close.
Because that's the kind of guy you are.
Yeah, of course. I've got other things to send to them. Not to worry.
Yep.
Not to worry. So what have you got next for me?
Oh, me. Well, I think I'll do a couple of things here in the interests of time. Yeah. The next things are really just several books that don't really have a tremendous amount of story to them, but they do sort of show you, you are a significant collector, and you're into, and we share some of these things overlap. I mean, I'm also interested in the early publications of the Baker Street Irregulars, things Edgar Smith happened, but you pursue things like association copies and so on. My collecting is, I always got things to read. So I never had a tremendous amount of money. So I never was into acquiring, particular editions. But these things mean a lot to me. The first one I would show you is this copy of Basil Rathbone's autobiography. Because in the days before ABE books and in the internet, this was one of the things I pursued. I'm going to bookshop to bookshop to bookshop, wherever I was, in New York and Boston. And I finally found a copy of Basil Rathbone's autobiography, which I loved. I mean, it's not a terrific autobiography, but it certainly gives you some insight into him and into his Sherlockian experience. And the next one I would show you is a souvenir of Michael Harrison. And Michael was a great friend of Al Silverstein, and that was how I met Michael in the first place. And this goes back in the 1980s. So when Michael was in the country, and this was, I guess, in 1985, when I imagine he was also at the dinner, because this is from January. I would bring a couple of books and ask Michael to sign them. And Michael was a wonderful Churchillian character. Like Churchill, Michael would start every day with a glass of Johnny Walker Black. I don't know if Churchill drank Johnny Walker Black, but Michael's morning tipple was Scotch and water.
I thought that was Listerine.
Usually Johnny Walker Black. He was a wonderful character, and I was thrilled to meet him. And Albert and I, we had a number of over the years meals with Michael. Once we were up in Yale with David Musto, but this was when I guess we were in New York, because the inscription is, to me, he wrote, with every good Sherlockian wish, at Keen's Chop House. But the reason why I have such fondness for this is like our other interactions with Michael. There comes a time in the meal when it becomes clear to you that you are paying for his lunch. and
by the way, Susan Dollinger in a comment here says his ability to drink was limited only by supply.
Right. Yeah, and the distillers were going, forever. But I still remember, Albert and I looking at each other over lunch, realizing that this was yet another case where we were buying Michael lunch. But it was a wonderful thing. And then the last one I would just show you in this round is this copy of the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. And this is an American, the Harper edition. And if I opened it up, if I had it in front of me and opened it up, I could tell you that I think it's the first edition, second printing. Anyway, what's important about this, to me anyway, and there's also another copy I have of The Adventures, is that they were given to me by Al Silverstein, but they were given to Albert by Nathan Bengus.
Oh, wow.
And they're full of Nathan's Bengus's notes, including his critique of this particular edition. This is a second edition. He's written some things about the edition, why it was interesting, why it wasn't interesting. I don't think it's particularly valuable, but it means a lot to me to have that because of the provenance of it.
Well, I mean, isn't that it really, that whatever we collect, whether it's reading material, papers, association copies, uh, mugs, whistles, keychains, matchbooks, whatever it is. Uh, these things have a particular meaning to us. And I think that's why when a collector reaches, the point where they no longer have use for these things, obviously there are some that have great value objectively, but then there are other items that kind of, trail off to the side that, may seem superfluous to some people, may seem silly, may seem unrelated in some way, and yet they have such great intrinsic value to us.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Well, it's like John Bennett Shaw's refrigerator, where he had, what did he have in there? He had butter
Chocolate,
sculptures or chocolates. That's right.
Sherlockian chocolates, yeah, and I think that refrigerator and its contents are still running, and they're at the University of Minnesota libraries. Something to check out, no doubt. Well, I think we got to the point here where we need you to check out a word from our sponsor. We will bring you a word from MX Publishing. The folks from MX Publishing, and I'm going to do a screen share for those folks who are following along at home. Let's see if I can get this to come up. Trying to multitask here. It's always dangerous. Here it is. Yes, folks at MX Publishing. They have a program now called Books to Books. You heard of their Books to Trees program, where they would plant a tree for every book that's purchased. Well, now with Books to Books, they are actually funding not only the 1,000 trees, but they're turning it into donations to the Happy Life schools in Kenya, where they are helping kids to read. And with the expansion of Happy Life schools, MX tells us that the team are providing education not just for the 150 kids at Happy Life, but hundreds more in the local communities. And the Books to Books project, they want to fund 1,000 school books by the end of 2021. So every $50 that you spend on the MX Publishing website will go towards a $5 donation, the average cost of a school book, to Happy Life. So when you get to enjoy the fine books from MX Publishing, and believe me, there are quite a few to choose from, the kids at the Happy Life Village in Kenya will also benefit from what it is that you're enjoying. So thank you to MX Publishing for expanding reading beyond our borders and beyond the usual, and helping kids to become literate. And now, back to our show. Well, I kind of I'm at a loss here for what to select next. There are so many here. Gosh. Well, there is a collection of Sherlock Holmes books from the Heritage Press. It came out in the 1950s, and it was edited by Edgar Smith. And it includes essays by Smith and Sterrett and Morley. And it's a remarkable collection. You've probably seen it. It typically comes in 3 large volumes, black with gold lettering, and they're typically in cases, in boxes. And when you take them out, there's this lovely VR and a relief, kind of a bas relief of Sherlock Holmes and the Frederick Dorr Steele silhouette there. Okay, and they're lovely. They are all completely as found, unabridged, unedited, and it's a lovely set. So I found this set in pretty much pristine condition. I mean, some of these you've probably seen on eBay or on ABE Books, and they're tattered and worn and whatnot. And I thought, well, that's something I should have for my collection. I'm not a completist in terms of getting as many editions of the canon as I can, but I do like to put in some work to put some special ones in my collection. And so later on, I came across another set. Now, this set was a little more beat up. You can see the edges there. They're a little chipped and worn. And the binding isn't terribly tight, but clearly it's been read and well loved. However, this was particularly special to me because it used to belong to one Paul Anderson. Paul Anderson was a member of the BSI and a major science fiction writer. And he and his wife Karen were both BSIs. Now, how do I know this was Paul Anderson's copy? Well, simply because this copy, it doesn't have a book plate, but it was inscribed to Paul Anderson from Edgar Smith. If you can make that out there, it says, "A Heritage for Paul Anderson, Edgar Smith, April 24th, 1959. So again, a wonderful association copy that I know was in the hands of two very prominent members of our organization. Now, you may be saying, wow, that's amazing, Scott. Can you do better than that? Well, maybe I can.
No, impossible.
Yeah, well, everything's possible with Sherlock Holmes. Last year, and Jerry Margolin is watching, and I know Jerry was involved in this purchase, because last year, I think it was either on eBay or it was eBay. I found an edition of the Heritage Press collection where it came in, let me see, I think it was nine separate volumes, individual volumes within each one of those cases. And what's more, they came with their original onion skin. They are in such good shape, and I daren't take them out of the case here because this onion skin is so delicate. I probably should have them all covered in Mylar at some point, so the onion skin doesn't continue to degrade. But for me, having the whole set in pretty good condition, a couple of cracks in the onion skin and whatnot, but to have the whole collection like that, as the Heritage Press edition, was pretty much the pinnacle of my complete canon collection type stuff.
Fabulous.
So that's what I've got there. Glassine. Thank you, Joe. Glassine.
Indeed.
Yes. Well, what have you got next for me, Burt?
Me. Well, I have another book that it could be an association copy. I love this book because of the story. And so, many of us know the Essays in Satire, a volume by Ronald Knox. And I have this ratty copy of Essays in Satire. But if you blow that up a little bit, it purports to be, and I didn't spend a tremendous amount of money for this. I was just looking for a copy of Essays in Satire. But when I got it, I open it up and I find out Dorothy L. Sayers' name is on the title page. So it's a book that purports to be Dorothy L. Sayers' copy of, that's not why I bought it, of Essays in Satire. And if you go to the inside, there are notes in pencil in the same hand about different things, only in the essay about Sherlock Holmes. So this purports to be Dorothy L. Sayers' copy of Essays in Satire, which I just enjoy having. But I'm very suspicious. I mean, it comes with no provenance, and I find that something like this, although I must say the signature on the flyleaf looks suitably old, but I didn't pay any more than you would pay for a ratty copy of Essays in Satire.
Now, what year is this book?
Oh, this is the first printing, I think, from October of 1928.
Okay.
I think.
Wow, that's amazing.
And there are notes, Sherlockian notes in pencil in the margin
Yeah.
where, if you look at this, theoretically, Dorothy L. Sayers is writing, correcting some errors in Knox's essay, and has a comment about John Hamish Watson, which she then made famous. But I don't know. I'm very suspicious about this. I didn't get this thing because it was presented to me as a rare thing. I just noticed all this stuff in it when I got it, and
Yeah.
I'm not taking it to the bank. I'm not taking it to Rebecca Romney anytime soon.
Well, hey, again, if this means something to you, then then that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fun.
yeah,
Fun thing.
yeah, very cool. Well, let's see. I guess. Oh, I don't. There's so much I'm going to leave out here. I guess we're going to have to do another episode of this. Um, I am going to go with something that is seasonally appropriate.
Good.
Since 1998, the Baker Street Journal has been producing a Christmas annual. And every year it's a different topic. And the production value is fantastic. It's lovely the way they stand out on the shelf. They're a different color than the rest of the journal. Now, this tradition we can trace to the journal from back to 1956. From 56 until 60, there were 5 editions, I think it was 5 editions of the Christmas Annual produced under the editorship of Edgar Smith. Well, that in itself was born from a tradition started by a single irregular, guy by the name of James Montgomery. And he was, I think he was the Red Circle. It's from Philadelphia, and he was an excellent singer. We still have recordings of his Aunt Clara from the BSI dinner, and his son Bruce took over that responsibility in the 70s, 80s, 90s after Jim passed away. So Jim decided to do his very own Christmas annual in 1950 and did 5 volumes until he unceremoniously and abruptly passed away from a heart attack in 1955. So this is the very first one. It's called Art in the Blood. What is this thing called? Music from James Montgomery. And then we move on to 1951, Sidelights on Sherlock by James Montgomery. 1952 brings us 3 trifling monographs. We get to 1954, and it's a lovely glossy cover here. Shots from the Cannon. This is a collection of essays, I think, including some music. You see the sheet music there, Sherlock Holmes. So there's probably at least a dozen or so essays in that one. And then this one I really like because this was a study in pictures. It was Montgomery's Christmas Annual, and it looks exactly like the Beatons' Christmas Annual, if you can make that out. Montgomery's Christmas Annual. And it's being a trifling monograph on the iconography of Sherlock Holmes, containing also 2 original reference tables and an index, as well as 32 illustrations from the canon, with cover design after Beaton's by Bruce Montgomery. So there Bruce actually takes over his father's work there. And Susan Dollinger helpfully says Bruce and James Montgomery both held the Red Circle investiture. Now, the final item in this collection is, as I said, James Montgomery died in 1955, and he died before he could mail out his Christmas annuals. So this is the final one. It's a case of identity where he tries to identify, and does a very good job of identifying the house in the Valley of Fear, Burleston. He traces it to England. I actually wrote this up on our website. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. And this comes with a printed note from Montgomery's wife, who says, "My husband died very suddenly on November 9th. It was his expressed wish, however, that I should get out this little booklet in the envelopes which he had already addressed. Constance P. Montgomery, Christmas, 1955. Now, that in and of itself is amazing. It's a complete collection of Christmas annuals. But here's the thing. It wasn't just kind of dashed together, cobbled together. It actually came from the same place, because this final edition came with the envelope that it was addressed to, one J.B. Austin, Esquire, whom you may know as Bliss Austin. And every single volume in this collection is autographed, is signed or inscribed to J.B. Austin with compliments of the season, James Montgomery, and then a little red circle after his name, Christmas 1950 in this case. The only one that is not inscribed to Bliss is the final version, and you can pretty much understand why. But this comes from the Bliss Austin collection that Peter Stern had, and I had seen it in his at his table at the BSI weekend I saw it one year, and I went back, and it was still available, and it was more than I really wanted to spend. But it's one of these things that you're not going to see this kind of thing on the market for decades, if I'm lucky. And I just said, how much am I going to regret this if I don't buy it? And given that, my specialty is collecting stuff that is by and associated with early members of the BSI, I thought I can't pass this by.
Now would be a great time for you to tell Mindy that it's your expressed wish that if anything should happen to you, that I should get that. In fact, if you want to hold on and just do that now, I'll wait.
I've actually already sent a message like that to Kathy, and I've probably said too much.
That's why we have those boxes and tape in the hall. Oh, now I understand it.
Oh, yeah. So, to me, again, it's the association, it's the connection with people. And I knew Bruce Montgomery. I got up and sung with Bruce Montgomery at BSI dinners a few times. And,
Sure.
I just have this wonderful connection to the origins, the early days of the BSI between Bliss Austin, of course, Sonia Featherston, whom we talked to, I think, on episode 75 about Bliss Austin. This would, kind of dovetail directly into that.
Wonderful. It's a great signature that he had. I love that idea that he had of drawing the little red circle at the end of his name. That's cute.
Yeah. Jerry Margolin says you only regret the ones you didn't buy. That works in collecting and love, Jerry. No question. So, well, have you got anything else for me, Burt?
I do. Should we not do a Wessex spot at
now might be a good time to pause for
some
Wessex.
point?
I've got no problem doing that. Let's see if we can pull them up while you get your
music
Wessex spot available. Let's see. This, of course, will be edited out in the final version, because who wants to sit through this? Okay. And now I will. One moment. Oh, I've got it right here. It's it's the Bookman.
Yes, there we are.
Sherlock
Holmes. Oh dear, you got the whole spot. Conversation in the world of literature. Ever since 1890.
Well, hang on, Bert. Let me cut you off.
Wouldn't it be great to look through?
You just want the music.
Yeah, you've got the music.
Oh, sure, I can do that. I didn't realize this was going to be a live read. This is fantastic.
Oh, well, you're the one who said do a live read.
Oh, well, I figured. Oh, let's see. Okay, ready? Set. No. Do I? Oh my
I
goodness.
think the music is still in the iHost folder, I think.
Oh, now I got to go to Dropbox. Boy, oh boy. This outtake show is going to be off the hook. Yeah, now I got to sign out of this Dropbox account and into my other one. Oh, technology. You see, folks, if we didn't have technology, we wouldn't be experiencing this kind of pain. Okay. Feel free to vamp, Bert.
Well, it's interesting looking at all of the things that you've brought to the table so far, and it makes me glad that I never told you that, particularly when it came to the limited edition set that you had earlier with
Yeah.
those glass covers, that I also happen to have that, but I got the paperback, the much rarer paperback.
I didn't know they did paperback.
Oh, sure, yeah. It says pocketbooks on it and everything. Yeah.
How do you like that? Okay, I think we're ready with Wessex Press. Okay.
Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle have been topics of conversation in the world of literature ever since 1895. Wouldn't it be great to look through all those discussions, have all those articles, reviews, and commentary in one place on your bookshelf? Now you can, because the Wessex Press has published Sherlock Holmes, Conan Doyle, and the Bookman, all the pastiches, parodies, letters, all the columns and commentaries about Sherlock Holmes from 1895 to 1933, from the finest literary magazine of the 20th century, the Bookman, in one place, bringing back dozens of long-lost commentaries about the chronicles of Sherlock Holmes. Do not wait until this handsome volume is out of print. Get your copy of Sherlock Holmes, Conan Doyle, and the Bookman, available right now at wessexpress.com.
Oh, so expertly done, Bert. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Jacqueline says she loves the behind the scenes look at the show. Yeah. Well, this is where we show you warts and all exactly what it's like to go through this kind of stuff. And Corey very appropriately says, "Where's the circus music?" Feels like that sometimes, I'll tell you. Okay. So we got that out of the way. All of our housekeeping is done.
All right.
Do you still have stuff you want to show off?
Yes, I'll finish up very quickly here.
Well, take your time. We don't have to. I mean, we can keep going. I mean, what else do the folks have to do at home? Their sad, wretched lives.
Well, I would just show these last things, but sort of as a sequence here. There are so many images of Sherlock Holmes, so much Sherlockian statuary that I've accumulated over the years a whole shelf full of these, and among them are a copy the Sherlock Hemlock from Sesame Street, which was given to me by my children for either a birthday or Christmas at one point, but also the Sherlock Snoopy that I got years ago as a Christmas ornament that I loved so much I never put it on the Christmas tree. Although there are other Snoopy ornaments on the Christmas tree, but I thought that was charming.
Yeah.
And then the next one is the Royal Dalton. One of the Royal Dalton figures of Sherlock Holmes, which
Oh,
I always loved, but it also seemed very expensive to me. And I happened to be one of the times I was in London in one of the arcades. I think it was in, I don't know that it was in the Burlington arcade. Richard Kaplan had a Leica shop in one of these arcades. And I remember near Richard's shop, there was a dealer in statuary in Royal Doulton. And anyway, I got this, it was on sale that they wanted to move. I guess it was after the Christmas holidays. So I always enjoyed that. But the last one I would show you is one of the uh, two that really mean a lot to me. The one on the left is a little base metal figure of Sherlock Holmes. It's sort of in the dark. You can't really see it. It's not really very important. It came from the Sherlock Holmes Museum at Baker Street.
Hmm.
But when I lived for some time in Brussels, and when I left Brussels on this assignment to come back to the States, the people that I worked with arranged a going away party for me.
Hmm.
And what they did was they rented the Sherlock Holmes Museum on Baker Street.
oh, wow.
And we had a lovely dinner and spent, I can't remember where the dinner was. I don't think the dinner was in the museum. But we spent a lovely amount of time in the Sherlock Holmes Museum. And that was one of the little keepsakes they gave me. But the one on the right of the screen is the Edgar W. Smith bust of Sherlock Holmes. But that is one
Edgar
of the,
W. or Edgar P.
right. But Edgar W. Was the originator. This is the Edgar P.
Okay.
version. And I had visited Edgar P., his son, and got a variety. There was a time when Edgar P. advertised that he had things for sale in the Baker Street Journal. And I lived nearby him in New Jersey. And so on a Sunday afternoon, I went over there and bought some back issues of the Baker Street, a regular Baker Street Journal, and this, that, and the other thing from him, and had a nice visit with him. And he also had the mold for
Wow.
the original list. And I was telling him a little bit about how technology had moved on and there were other ways, if he wanted to do castings. And anyway, he then did a run of these things and I managed to acquire one. But I'm very fond of it. Not
Yeah.
that it's a terrific bit of statuary.
Well, again, it's that connection that you have to it, and how lovely. Do we know what happened to that mold by any chance?
I don't, but I still remember he had how it was all, when you make these molds, they're in sections,
Right.
you build it around the clay and the whole thing was held together. Must be someplace. Somebody must have it.
Fantastic. Well, that should be interesting. Oh gosh, so many things. I mean, I've got a lot of the early Baker Street irregular publications. I don't know if it's worth going through these individually, but you'll recognize these from the Pamphlet House, Edgar Smith publications. Some are hardcover, some are soft. I have both. Where I have a hardcover, I also have the softcover version as well. You've got topics like Appointment in Baker Street and Baker Street and Beyond and Baker Street Inventory. The reason I mention these, I'm not going to go through all of them, is because there are a couple that are particularly interesting to me because they are special numbers. So, this is completely the Sherlockian geek in all of us. Okay, I've got Baker Street Inventory here in the soft cover, and it is dated. I don't remember off the top of my head what year Edgar published. 1945, and there were 300 copies made of this first edition. And again, the Sherlockian geek in me is thrilled because this is copy. Can you see?
Oh yeah, look at that.
Copy 221. Because of course, that's what Sherlockian geeks do. I've got Appointment in Baker Street here, which was, I think this was one of Edgar's early contributions to the literature. And again, these are some publications that brought him to the attention of Vincent Starrett and Christopher Morley. This one is in 1938, before Edgar actually took over the BSI. 250 copies made. This is copy 26, but this one I like in particular because it comes with a book plate. This was Edgar's own copy.
That's great.
So again, it's this intrinsic value that, you know, the number itself, the volume, is it really any different from any other one? No, not really. But the fact that this came from Edgar's collection is what makes it special to me. What have I got here? Oh, The Napoleon of Crime, prolegomena to the memoir of Professor James Moriarty, SCD. This is from the library of John, it's Ex Libris John Rule, Ruyle. I don't know if if it's Ruley. I don't remember how to pronounce his name. It's Sherlockian of high regard and a publisher. He had a small press himself. But this is from 1953 from the Pamphlet House, and it's inscribed by Edgar Smith. So again, lovely copy, you know, touched by Edgar's hands, and sent off to a collector. So I've got a number of things like that, and I think I have all of Edgar's publications. But it's interesting. I learned this from Glenn Moranker. There are reasons to have more than one copy of things if you're a collector. If you're not a collector, there are no reasons. And people like my wife, for example, wouldn't understand. But when you can get a copy, and perhaps it's a better copy. You know, Glenn taught me, always buy the best copy that you can find, and or that you can afford. And if you can't afford it, just buy your entry level and then trade up, right? And what I've found is I don't trade up. I simply accumulate more as a true collector. So I have multiple copies of the same thing that, you know, are increasingly better condition, or that have been signed or inscribed, or that are an association copy, etc. And I think that's one of the reasons I've got a number of copies of some of these later BSI editions. Those early editions that we had there, Baker Street and Beyond, for example, they later came out in these red cover copies. And when the BSI started doing its history series in the late 1990s with John Lellenberg, they replicated this red paperback cover. Now this copy in particular, Baker Street and Beyond, it was originally published in the early 40s. This one was published by the BSI in 1957 by the Baker Street Irregulars, Inc. And this one I like in particular because, let's see, well, it's copy 151. That's not really too meaningful, but it comes with this little note inside of it. Let me go widescreen here on you. Baker Street Irregulars, Inc., 221B Baker Street, Morristown, New Jersey. Dear Jimmy, this is a courtesy copy taken in token of the permission, which I have taken for granted, to reprint pieces from the second cab. All my best, and I hope you enjoy this volume of Smithiana. So this is and it's signed Edgar. So it's a note from Edgar Smith to James Keddy Jr., again, my pal at the Speckled Band. So, and I've got a number of copies like this. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but again, it's kind of tying those loose ends together between those Edgar pieces and members of the Speckled Band.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So,
well, I would show one last thing.
Okay.
Which is sort of an unintentional collection.
Unintentional.
Yeah. I was a great pipe smoker for many years.
Oh.
And I worked in a tobacco shop when I was in college and did a variety of things. And one day I realized that I was collecting the pipes of the actors who who played Sherlock Holmes.
Oh my goodness!
And so
Like,
here's
like they're actual pipes or replicas?
no replicas.
Oh,
Same
that
style.
would be impressive.
Yeah, well, it's hard to find these things. I mean, when an actor, is done with something, they either take it home or it gets, who knows what happens to it. So here you have six pipes, and starting from the left of the screen at the top, it's the same style of pipe that Clive Brooks smoked as Sherlock Holmes. It's a large Peterson with a sterling silver band and that typical Peterson bit. The one below it is a bent Barling, as favored by Arthur Wantner. And below that is a bent Dunhill that was smoked. The same style pipe was smoked by Basil Rathbone in the 20th Century Fox pictures. And then at the top of the column, the next column, this is the only intentional pipe that I actually pursued. This is a replica of the pipe Rathbone smoked in the Universal pictures. And I pursued it because when I was living in Europe, this is back in the 90s, I had a photograph of Rathbone smoking one of these things. And it's very hard to find a match to that particular pipe because it was, it was popular in the 40s, but they haven't made it since. And Peterson came out with a whole line of Sherlock Holmes pipes, but none of them are really reflect the one that Rathbone smoked. So I sent the photograph to Peterson's in Ireland and asked them if they would please make me up a couple of these, and they did. With that tapered stem, and then the one below it is that's a bent Barling, and that's close to the one that Douglas Wilmer smoked. And then the bottom one, I acquired a calabash similar to the one used by Christopher Plummer when he played Holmes. So I have my Airsats collection of the pipes of Sherlock Holmes, which have nothing to do with the pipes that Holmes actually smoked.
Huh. How about that? Well, that is something. Now, I smoked a pipe for a hot minute. It's been a while, but I remembered, I think it was in the late 80s, early 90s or so, Peterson came out with an entire Peterson collection of pipes. Patrick Ewing here in the comments said he has several of their pipes, including the Holmes ones. And I think if I can find the Peterson site, I believe they've got, here it is, the Sherlock Holmes series. In 1987, they say, we released a special commemorative pipe to celebrate the 100th anniversary of A Study in Scarlet. And I will make this large screen so everyone can see it. They say the pipe was a tubular, almost trumpeting calabash shape, an XL version of the 305B system, first designed by our senior craftsman, Paddy Larigan. The design is better known today as the original. So Larigan went on to create the prototypes for each of the 7 shapes in the original Sherlock Holmes collection, released between 1989 and 1991, all of which were inspired by people, places, or important artifacts from Doyle's stories. So you've got Sherlock Holmes. They do smooth, ebony, natural, a whole series of them here.
Yeah, I have one of those Sherlock Holmes, that first Sherlock Holmes pipe in natural that they came out with. It's just, it's really got nothing to do with, I was more interested in things that, the actors.
Well, they eventually did a Rathbone. They did Rathbone eventually.
Well, they created a pipe that they called the Rathbone, but it's not the same shape as the one that Rathbone actually smoked in the movies.
There it is. Yeah. There's the Rathbone. But it was creative, and they sold a they sold a rack with them. And the idea here is, if you're a pipe smoker, you don't smoke the same pipe day after day, and you certainly don't smoke the plugs and dawdles from the day before. Oof, can't imagine doing that. But you rotate your pipes, so they gave collectors and pipe enthusiasts something to. You're gonna hate me for this. Put in their pipe and smoke it. So Now, Monica says, love it. The pipe featured in my tattoo is based on the Peterson Sherlock Holmes original model. Now, if none of you have seen Monica in person, she has a lovely Sherlock Holmes tattoo behind her shoulder that she has copyrighted. That's the most amazing thing about the whole thing. She has copyrighted her tattoo because people were stealing it. Can you imagine? And she had to go after them as fiercely as the Conan Doyle estate went after people. Amazing. Amazing. We have taken a lot of your time here. We still have our quiz to do, Canonical Couplet. And I'm not even going to try to do the music at this point. I think we'll save the music and the spinning prize wheel for everyone else. Perhaps we'll just end the year with the winner from the last one, and then we'll start up our new Canonical Couplet in season 15. Can you believe it? We are entering season 15 with the January 15th drop of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere. That is truly amazing. We've been doing this for going on 15 years now. And it's all thanks to you, thanks to our listeners and viewers now. And maybe we'll do a few live streams in the new year. So let's get to that Canonical Couplet from the last episode. You may remember the last time around, Burt, we gave you this clue. The oldest inspector and the very youngest constable would shake Holmes's hand for finding those responsible. Burt, I hesitate to ask, but do you know which story we're talking about with this Canonical Couplet?
Of course, it's absolutely simple. That's the story that's all about the theft of Mrs. Hudson's favorite casserole. That's the glorious pot.
It never gets old. and yet I tire of it. No. No, this is part of the fun, part of the amazing part of our show, part of the magic that goes into it. Burt, it was not. And I'm going to go to our friend Eric Deckers to help us out again.
Eric will have got
he says this one was easy. It's the story of an ailing Oxford Don who swallowed a valuable jewel and comes to Holmes in search of Dr. Watson's miracle brandy cure. Whew. That's right. It's the adventure of the sick Oxonian. Almost as bad as Burt's.
Sick Oxonian.
Well, we actually spun the big prize wheel beforehand, and believe it or not, Eric actually came up as our winner because he did append it with the proper answer, which was the adventure of the Six Napoleons. Six Napoleons, Burt. So, Eric, thank you for all your contributions, and congratulations for winning this time around. I'm so glad it worked out that way. But in the meantime, we will invite everyone to join us next time around because we are sending Eric a copy of Sherlock Holmes magazine. So the next time around, we'll be back here with another Canonical Couplet quiz for 2021 to start us out with an associated prize. And spoiler alert, you're not getting any of this stuff that Burt showed you. We're keeping that unless, our donations just go over the top this year. Again, thank you for being part of the I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere family this year. Don't forget to tune into Trifles, our companion show that comes out every week. We're dropping another episode later today, our final episode of the season for Trifles. It's getting harder and harder to keep going on there. We are up to 209 episodes over there. Again, 207 here. That's a lot of back listening for you to get to if you are a new listener. But thank you for being with us throughout 2020. Burt, any final words, final thoughts from you before we wrap up here?
No, I think I've shown and told everything.
Shouled and told, yes. Well, ask not for whom the bell tolls or tells. It is for thee, Sherlockian. Happy end of 2020 to all of you, and a very happy new year from us here at iHose Media. We look forward to connecting with you next year. And again, check out that new structure on Patreon when it goes live on January 1st. And in the meantime, I am the completely discordant Scott Monty.
And I am the completely harmonious Burt Wolder.
And together we say the
Games
of
of
fun.
fun.
I'm afraid that in the pleasure of this conversation, I'm neglecting business of importance, which awaits me elsewhere.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to join us again for the next episode of I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere, the first podcast dedicated to Sherlock Holmes.
Goodbye, and good luck, and believe me to be, my dear fellow, very sincerely yours, Sherlock Holmes.
Ha. So this is the part where we continue to broadcast and we can talk about everybody now.
Oh,
They're all
wonderful.
gone.
Let's read all the chat entries.
They're not. I know there's so many great comments here, and we know we're still streaming. We know you're still with us, so thank you. So many great comments. Jeff says he looks forward to all of your answers on the quiz. We have a groan from Monica. I think that was from put that in your pipe. We have Jerry screaming and running from the room. Jennifer says it never gets old, and yet I tire of it. Jacqueline had a great time. We all had a great time. This was fun for us as well. Seeing your comments coming in has just been so gratifying. We do see all of them, even if we aren't putting them up on the screen. We do see them. So thank you to Claire and Rich and Francine and Muhammad, Jennifer, and
Yes, thanks to Jennifer Robin from Providence, and I did wish Al Silverstein just did have his 85th birthday.
yeah,
and wished him very well on Christmas Day.
excellent. Thank you so much, Mohammed. I think you said you were from Syria or Turkey. I'm not sure if I got those garbled, but thank you. Jim, Happy New Year to you. Mike McClure, he says another great year. We all needed you so much. Oh, that means a great deal, and we're glad that we could put a little burst of positivity and fun into an otherwise craptacular year. Will things amazingly and miraculously change at the strike of midnight? No, but we will be here. We'll keep doing this. So,
Jerry wanted to know what the Superman is behind.
Where?
The
I'm going to blow up your screen here so we can see you. Let's see. Solo layout. There you go.
Oh yeah. Well, it's up on the wall behind me, but that is a.
Oh, I see. Up in the top there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is an enlargement of the 32-cent first class stamp that was issued some years ago of Superman, along with a medal and a first day cover. And they also issued a reprint of Action Comics #1 that I have.
Oh, fantastic.
Since the actual one,
Well,
I couldn't afford.
well, I don't think many of us can at this point. So, Patrick Ewing says we're priceless. So I would imagine that means we should have an infinity amount on Patreon for people that want to just give us their entire life savings or their MasterCard number. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
Very cool. And thank you to Monica. I don't know if people know, but Monica has done a thing every Saturday at 3:00 Eastern time, I believe. She watches Sherlockian movies. She does a Sherlockian's kind of matinee thing. Does it on Zoom, where people can view together various productions of Sherlock Holmes. And Monica's been hosting that throughout the pandemic. So. Fantastic work from Monica, and a great warm-up for the virtual BSI weekend that's coming up next week. So 3 p.m. Central. And you can check that out in the Strangers Room off of the I Hear of Sherlock Everywhere Facebook page. So that'll do it.
Very good.
All right, Burt. Well, I need to go have some lunchy because I'm starving over here, and I'm surprised you haven't heard the microphone pick up any of my gut rumblings.
What's for lunch?
I have no idea. I'm just, scrounging around. I may actually, you know what? I may have a prime rib sandwich from that leftover prime rib from from Christmas dinner.
Oh, that's right. We also had prime rib for Christmas.
Did you? We made a lovely beef stroganoff out of some of the leftovers last night. It was yummy. So,
Interesting.
all right, my good friend. Good to see all of you here. Thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you, Constantine. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Corey. You guys are awesome. This is part of what makes us want to keep doing this. So, oh, you know what? I'm just on you, Burt. I'm looking at you like it's a Zoom call, and it's not. Well, I'm going to get over and see if I can scroll through all of these comments actually on Facebook and on YouTube that we didn't see here. And we'll see how it goes. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.